Alright, gentlemen, let me paint a picture for you. Imagine standing in the middle of an industrial area in Bangkok at 6 a.m., clutching a bunch of red roses. The city is waking up, but you're there for one reason: to surprise a woman you've never met in person, but who has occupied your thoughts for months. Sounds romantic, right? Or maybe a bit crazy? Stick around because what happens next is something every man thinking of finding love in Thailand needs to hear. Before we dive in, let me ask you, have you ever gone out of your way to impress someone, only to feel like it's all falling apart right in front of you? If so, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. So, let me tell you about this guy. Just 2 months ago, he was like many of you, enjoying a vacation in Bangkok, completely mesmerized by the beauty of Thai women. After returning to Hong Kong, he couldn't shake the thought. He decided to take action. What did he do? He signed up for a Thai dating site. The goal? To find a girlfriend. The result? He collected about 20 line ids. But as you can imagine, not all that glitters is gold. Some girls didn't reply, others couldn't hold a conversation in English, and some were just plain boring. But then, there was Jay, the one who stood out from the rest. She was sweet, smart, independent, and her English was good enough to keep the conversation flowing. Every day, they chatted more, shared more about their lives, and he found himself thinking about her constantly. He started wondering, was this the beginning of something special? As they continued chatting, he realized he was falling for her. But it wasn't just about her looks or their conversations. It was the way she carried herself, educated, hardworking, and living on her own. There was something about her that kept him checking his phone every few minutes, eagerly waiting for her messages. And when they came, they made his day. But let me ask you, how many of you have found yourselves in a situation where you think you're connecting with someone, only to be unsure if they feel the same? Let's talk about that. Then came the bad news. Something tragic happened that affected all of Thailand, and Jay was heartbroken. She kept crying, and he felt helpless. All he could offer were comforting words through his phone, wishing he could be there in person to support her. Determined to make her smile, he sent her a bouquet of roses anonymously, hoping it would brighten her day, even just a little. And you know what? She liked it. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to him. After that, their connection deepened. They exchanged pictures, talked about their daily lives, and he started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way about him. So, he did what any hopeful romantic would do. He proposed a visit to Bangkok to meet her face to face. And guess what? She agreed. Not only that, but she even took time off work to show him around the city. Things were looking up, right? Now, let's fast forward to the moment he landed in Bangkok. She helped him find a place to stay in the same condo building as hers. He wanted to make sure she could relax during her time off, so he planned a getaway to a nice hotel in Hua Hin, where they could swim, rest, and just enjoy each other's company. It all sounded perfect, almost like a dream. But here's where things start to take a turn. The first red flag appeared when he showed up at her workplace to surprise her. Instead of the warm welcome he had imagined, she seemed distant, almost indifferent. She wasn't surprised, she wasn't excited, she was just there. On the way back to the condo, the conversation was sparse, and the lively chats they used to have online seemed like a distant memory. He kept telling himself that maybe she was just tired, or maybe she didn't like the surprise. But the more time they spent together, the more he realized something was off. She was glued to her phone, barely paying attention to him. He tried his best to keep the conversation going, but it felt like he was talking to a wall. Has anyone here ever been on a date where you felt like you were the only one trying? It's a brutal feeling, isn't it? When the day finally came to head to Hua Hin, he hoped things would improve. The hotel was stunning, the beach was beautiful, and he had gone all out to make sure she would enjoy every moment. But instead of spending time together, she slept most of the way there and continued to be distant even after they arrived. It was heartbreaking. He had imagined this trip would bring them closer, but it seemed to be doing the opposite. That evening, they had drinks by the pool, followed by a massage and a walk on the beach. He even mustered up the courage to ask if he could hold her hand, an innocent, sweet gesture, right? But even that felt forced. She said yes, but it was clear she wasn't into it. She kept pulling her hand away, preferring to play with her phone or listen to music instead. By now, he was starting to question everything. Why wasn't she reciprocating? Had he done something wrong? He began to feel like a fool, constantly trying to get her attention while she seemed to care less and less. And trust me, the frustration of loving someone who doesn't love you back is a special kind of torture. The next day, he tried to make the most of their time together, but it was clear she wasn't interested. They had a jacuzzi in their room, something he had booked specifically to help her relax, but when he suggested they enjoy it together, she declined. Again, he respected her boundaries, but it felt like every effort he made to connect with her was being shut down. Now, here's where it gets even more painful. On the final day, they barely spoke. She made no effort to see him off, and he was left to take a taxi to the airport alone. The goodbye was quick, emotionless, and left him with more questions than answers. Has anyone here ever been ghosted or given the cold shoulder after investing so much of yourself into someone? It's soul-crushing. As he sat on the plane back to Hong Kong, his mind was racing. He had flown all this way, spent money, time, and effort, all for a girl who treated him like a stranger. He kept replaying the events in his mind, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Was it something he said? Something he did? Or was it simply that she never felt the same way he did? The truth hit him hard. She wasn't the sweet, loving girl he had imagined. She was cold, distant, and didn't care about him the way he cared about her. And yet, despite all the signs, he found himself falling even more in love with her. It's crazy how the heart works, isn't it? Sometimes, the more someone pushes us away, the more we want them. Back in Hong Kong, he couldn't get her out of his mind. He was exhausted, both mentally and physically. The sleepless nights, the emotional roller coaster, it all took a toll on him. The day after he returned, he was so distracted that he ended up crashing his car on the way to work. He found himself lying in a hospital bed, with nothing but time to think about everything that had happened. And in those quiet moments, something clicked. He realized that while he was lying there, alone and injured, the person he had been obsessing over didn't care about him at all. She had let him down, but more importantly, he had let himself down by allowing someone else's indifference to affect him so deeply. Eventually, she did message him, apologizing for the way things turned out. But by then, it didn't matter. He had already made peace with the situation. In fact, he realized that she had done him a favor by being honest in her own way. She didn't lead him on any further, and for that, he was grateful. But here's the kicker, he apologized to her too. He felt sorry for wasting her time, for expecting too much, and for putting her on a pedestal she never asked to be on. He admitted to himself that he had been blinded by his own hopes and dreams, projecting his desires onto someone who was never going to fulfill them. After this experience, his friends laughed at him. They told him he should have just been a player, gone to Thailand for the fun of it, and moved on. But that's not who he was. He respected women, and when he fell for someone, he fell hard. He believed in love, even if it meant getting hurt along the way. And that's something I think a lot of us can relate to. At the end of the day, he realized something important. Sometimes, love isn't about the destination, but about the journey. Yes, it hurts when things don't work out, but every experience teaches us something valuable. In his case, he learned that love can't be forced, no matter how much effort you put in. It has to be mutual, and if it's not, it's okay to walk away with your head held high. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. After he recovered from the accident, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let this one experience define him or his future relationships. Instead, he decided to take what he learned and apply it to the next chapter of his life. He started focusing on himself, his health, his hobbies, his career. He realized that to attract the right person, he needed to be the best version of himself first. And guess what? As he started to invest in himself, things began to change. He met new people, made new friends, and eventually, he met someone who appreciated him for who he was, someone who didn't need grand gestures or surprises to feel loved. It was easy, natural, and mutual from the start. This time, it was different. He wasn't chasing after someone who didn't care. He was building a relationship with someone who valued him just as much as he valued them. So, what's the moral of the story, guys? If you're out there looking for love, whether it's in Thailand or anywhere else, remember this: don't lose yourself in the process. Love should lift you up, not bring you down. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like the one I've just shared, take it as a lesson, not a failure. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you gave your all, only to feel like it wasn't enough? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to read about your experiences. And if you found this story relatable, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more real-life stories and advice. Remember, you deserve to be with someone who truly appreciates you for who you are. Don't settle for less. Until next time, take care of yourselves.